Morning, evening, afternoon, Cubs fans. Welcome back to the channel. It is AJ, your average fan here. Go ahead and leave a like on the video if you like what you hear today. Leave a subscribe, hit the notification bell so we can beat the YouTube algorithm. And with that, just a quick note, I have started adding timestamps in the video description, so if you guys want to skip to a part that you want to hear, you don't have to sit around for the whole video. You could just go to what you are looking for. We got the jersey of the day, my friends. As always, we got a road blue. We got Dansby Swanson on today. Well, Cubs fans, the winter meetings has come to an end. For some reason, I thought that they were longer. Turns out that it's just 4 days. That, and I was also working on getting over an illness, so I apologize for not bringing a video any sooner. I am also working on the Bears videos for this week, so that will be coming as well. With the winter meetings coming to an end, the Chicago Cubs didn't do anything. Kind of not really a surprise. The way that the winter meetings has gone the last couple of seasons, I assume that any big signing and or trade that the Cubs make will be probably within the next week or two. That kind of seems to be on brand for the Chicago Cubs. Before we get into the Cubs talk, though, some notables off the board, like Max Fried from Atlanta and drawing a blank here. Willie Adames from Milwaukee were two guys that I was interested in, and both of them have been signed to different teams, so those are officially off the board for Chicago. However, not to fear, as of right now, there are still some good players out there, and the Cubs have been in some pretty heavy talks with a couple of teams, and we will be getting into that. Another notable is Nico Horner. They're still potentially in trade talks with Seattle. However, those talks have kind of died down a little bit. So I don't really anticipate Nico Horner necessarily getting moved. Also, Dansby Swanson, we found out in the last week, he had surgery back in October for a core surgery, and it looks like it is something related to a hernia, and he is not expected to miss any time. He should be ready to go by spring training, per Jed Hoyer and Craig Counsel, which is also kind of crazy because why it wasn't mentioned back in October, who knows. But the Cubs have put in paperwork on Roki Sasaki, and that one is very interesting. I believe that if Suzuki is to stay, I think that we might have a good shot at landing Roki. Very good pitcher. Imanaga has been working out really well for the Chicago Cubs. So if you have, Imanaga and Sasaki on the same team, I mean, since you missed out on Max Fried, that could, impact the Cubs' rotation in another way. And I know that the Cubs are also still in on Jack Flaherty. I have heard that too on X, per ESPN and Locked On Cubs and CHGO Cubs and all the other podcasts. 670 The Score is still mentioning it. So, the Cubs are still very much active in the pitching. While I just looked this up really quick, the Cubs have definitely put a emphasis on run prevention lately. They have signed 2 catchers now. Let's see here. That is December. So if I'm looking back here at November, I cannot seem to find the name that I'm looking for. Cannot seem to find the name that I'm looking for. But the Chicago Cubs have added 2 catchers. It looks like it is just to get Meguel Amaya a day off in the week during the season. Maybe just in case, his offense kind of dips off a little bit. just to kind of help him, and maybe also to give Moises Ballesteros a veteran presence to kind of help him move along as well. But it looks like that Meguel Amaya will be the dominant catcher for the Chicago Cubs, which I do like that move. I personally do believe in Meguel Amaya. I think that, again, he trended very much upward towards the tail end of the season there, and I would like to see, if he is able to sustain that over a full season. They didn't go crazy on the catchers. They kind of went for that run-of-the-mill, like a 250 batting average type of offensive production, but they did get a couple of catchers there. Also, they did pick up Will Jensen from... he came from the minor leagues. Who did he come from? Looks like Sacramento, a Triple-A team. Not sure who they're affiliated with, but they did pick up a pitcher there. And then also, as well, there was another one that I wanted to go over. If my computer will work with me here. But, so the Cubs, they're kind of focusing more on the trading side of things, which I do understand. They are very heavy on Alex Bregman, or not Alex Bregman. Jesus, I was just looking at this too. Wow. Why can I not find what I'm looking for? Good Lord. I apologize, my friends. Give me 1 second here. Okay, found it. It is Kyle Tucker from Houston, and the more that I keep looking into this, the more that this trade makes sense. If Suzuki is not involved in that trade, because you're trying to find somebody to match with Suzuki, not just replace him, right? And I know that you're going to have to give up some really good prospects if you're looking at Kyle Tucker, and he's basically going to be a one-year rent-a-player simply because, he's going to walk into... this is his contract year, and he will probably elect free agency. I don't foresee the Cubs, extending him or signing him to any type of contract. But I do see a guy like Isaac Paredes being in that trade. At one point, there was talks in Bellinger being in that trade, but Houston came out and said that they don't want him because of his comments that he made with that 2017 cheating scandal. Understandable. But if you go and do that, it looks like you're going to have to give up a good prospect haul, and it's probably going to involve at least a pitcher in AAA, probably a position player from AAA, and then somebody who's MLB ready, like a Hayden Wesneski or a Javier Assad type of player. Kyle Tucker would fit in actually fairly good with the Cubs, especially in the outfield, even though we have a logjam of guys in the outfield. As a 1 year, he would be that kind of bat that you need to get yourself what seems to be the hump, because, the offensive production, while it is good with the Cubs, we have seen in the last couple of seasons that they go through a lull, and then by the time they pick it back up, it's too late. And you can't really have that. You need to find a way to sustain it all year. And Kyle Tucker, outside of last season where he was injured, he has not hit any less than 25 home runs. He's got an OPS up in the north 800s. So, that could solve a lot of problems for the Cubs. And if you put Isaac Paredes in there, it would appear that the Cubs would pull up somebody from AAA or go with the guy that they just got from from the Rule 5 draft, Gage Workman, I think is the guy that they got, Gage Workman. Even though he's a shortstop, he does play third base, and he has to be on the opening day roster. Otherwise, the Cubs would have to offer him back to the Tigers. So I could see him making the opening day start if they were to trade Paredes. But, I mean, the trade obviously has to happen first. And then you also got the part where the whole Suzuki part of it, there's been reports coming out that Suzuki has not been happy being a preliminary DH, but as we all have seen, he's been struggling in the outfield. His defense hasn't been great, but he has been really good at the plate, so you got to try to find a way to work that out. But then there's also trade interests for Pete Alonso, so the Cubs have a lot of options here, and the Cubs seem to be front runners on Alonso and Tucker. A lot of people on the inside of the industry keep pointing at the Cubs for those two players, being Kyle Tucker and Pete Alonso. And I wouldn't mind either one of them. It just depends on what you're having to give up, especially in that Pete Alonso trade, because I don't know how much you would want to give up for Pete Alonso as compared to Kyle Tucker, especially with Michael Busch being fairly successful on defense at first. So you would basically be pulling in Alonso to be a DH if Suzuki gets traded away. So it's kind of it kind of be a merry-go-round for a minute there to see how these trades all kind of pan out. But once you get through the trades, you could really start to see the direction that the Cubs are going. And I know that a lot of Cubs fans have kind of come to the realization that we were all kind of waiting on the ball to drop with Juan Soto to see how that was going to go down, because that was going to dictate the market for the Cubs. At least that's what a lot of people think, especially with the Bellinger side. And the Bellinger side is starting to get really muddy because the top team that wants him is the Yankees, but the Yankees also basically want him for free and want the Cubs to cover the contract. And my deal with that, and I think a lot of people's deal, is that if you're having to cover most of his contract, why would you trade him anyways? You're looking for as much of a salary dump as possible, unless you are trading for somebody with a similar contract that helps you in another area, like pitching. I believe that there is a pitcher from Seattle that the Cubs are looking at that would basically be a straight-up swap type of it would be a contract kind of a deal, because I believe Luis Castillo, his contract numbers are about the same as Cody Bellinger's. So, really, I don't know of any other teams that are really in on the Bellinger sweepstakes. I believe that maybe San Diego might be one of them, but I'm not 100% sure on that one either. And Seattle would basically just want to stick it to New York as far as that goes. And again, New York basically wants the Cubs to cover most of the contract. If you're having to cover most of the contract and you're not getting what you want out of it, why would you get rid of Cody Bellinger anyways? You might as well just hang on to him and see what you can make work elsewhere via trades, because I think that Paredes is definitely gone, but I really hope that Suzuki sticks around, because even though he's not in the outfield every day, I think that his at-bats in the DH spot are too valuable to let him go for Kyle Tucker. I think that you got to find something else to put into that trade block to make it happen. I don't think that trading Suzuki is a very smart move, especially if you're bringing in Roki, and if you're bringing in Kyle Tucker, and if you're bringing in even Pete Alonso. I mean, you could really stack the lineup and actually make a legitimate push for your division next year, especially if you're getting guys like Kyle Tucker and Pete Alonso on basically just a one-year deal. I still don't see the appeal to letting Suzuki go in a trade when I believe this is his contract year, unless he's got a club option for 2026. He might. But this is kind of where the Cubs are at right now. And again, I kind of saw this one coming. I didn't really think that the Cubs were going to do a whole lot during the winter meetings. I mean, not as far as signing anybody or actually trading, but I did suspect that they were going to get into some really heavy trade talks, which they did definitely succeed in. It seems like Kyle Tucker will end up being a Cub. It just depends on what's in that trade package. If they could find a way to not have to get rid of Suzuki so that they could put Suzuki and Kyle Tucker in the same lineup together, that would be the best course of action. But you got to find a way to do it. So, again, I know that you know the Cubs are kind of in this weird situation because again, you got the Bellinger thing, which unless you basically straight up trade contract for contract, it looks like you probably won't trade him because most teams would want you to eat most of that money, and if you're having to eat it, why would you do it? And you have a logjam of outfielders, so you should be able to get Kyle Tucker without having to forego Seiya Suzuki, as far as I'm concerned. And then on the other side of that, Craig Counsel looks like that his coaching staff is set for 2025 as well. And I like the changes there. I like that I kind of figured that he was going to ride out last year with the guys that were already on the team, and then he would start building out his own core of guys. And I mean, it was kind of all over the place. He had trainers that he brought in, a new bullpen guy, first base coach, third base coach, and these are all guys that win. He brought a guy back from Milwaukee that he worked with for a long time. They went and got the first base coach out of Houston, I believe. So I mean, the groundwork is there. You just got to finish it out with some of these polish up pieces. I would like to see one more starting pitcher. I do want to see two more bullpen guys, which also the Cubs are reportedly in on Hobie Milner, which I've been to a lot of games at Wrigley and Miller Park where Hobie Milner, blanks us when we're there playing against them. So I wouldn't mind seeing him on the team whatsoever. I just have to put some faith in Jed here that he gets at least one of these big trades done, whether that is Castillo for pitching or Kyle Tucker for the outfield. I do believe that we will get there. And also, with Tauchman being gone, I think that kind of puts you in a spot where you can kind of move Bellinger around a little bit if you want to put Suzuki out in the outfield for a day, or Kyle Tucker obviously will be out in the outfield, platoon Bellinger and PCA in center, or Bellinger at DH. Like, there's a lot of ways you could go about it, and that's the good thing about the way that the 2025 roster is starting to shape up. Barring one of these trades gets done. So that's kind of where we're at right now. Not the news that I wanted to present. I was hoping to go in depth on a really big trade that the Cubs have made, but they just haven't done that yet. So Cubs fans, you let me know what you think down below in the comments section. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell, because we all know that algorithm sucks, and I will catch you guys in the next one.